Welcome back. Job number 19. Oh, man. 52 stories about 52 jobs I've had at age 52 in 52 weeks, give or take. This is job number 19, companion. Picture, if you will, maybe your perfect day or a perfect day. For me, when I was in college or just out of college, I can't remember exactly when I had this job. I think I might have been transitioning from college into college. But anyway, here was a perfect day for me. You get up, you play golf at a fancy country club, eat lunch at the country club, then browse bookstores for an afternoon, catch an early afternoon movie, and then head back with a friend and maybe play some cards and call it good. That sounds like a pretty good day, and that's what this job was. Job number 19, companion. I got this job, Matt Love. It was this guy, and I knew, and he had even crazier jobs than I did, and this was one of them. And he was a companion to this guy named Ed Carter, who started this firm called Carter Hawley Hale, and they were influential investors. And this guy had a lot of cash, and he was getting old and needed someone to kind of be around him. And this was his perfect day too. And so every day he would go out and he'd play 9 holes of golf at the Los Angeles Country Club, then eat an awesome dinner there. And then you'd go to a bookstore and he'd buy a book, and then you'd watch a movie, and you just kind of go along with him. And Matt says it was his gig. This was Matt's gig. He had it. He's like, I need someone to fill in because I can't do it. Would you be willing to do this? Would I be willing to play golf, eat lunch, browse a bookstore, and then go to a movie and play cards? I thought I could handle it, and I could handle it. I love playing golf, and I love reading books, and I love watching movies. This was right up my alley, so I said sure. So I go to So I meet Ed Carter at the Los Angeles Country Club, and I meet him there, and he's an old guy, and he just gets kind of confused. He wasn't like completely out of it, but he wasn't completely all there too. And I said to him, but he was still pretty sharp because he's reading a book like every 2 days. And I said, so should I call you Ed or Mr. Carter? And he goes, Mr. Carter's fine. So it was clearly an employer-employee relationship. He didn't really want me there. He's like, I like to do this stuff. I know I got to have somebody here, but you and I are not going to have a relationship at all, which is fine. And so we go there, and I'm playing golf at the country club, but he wouldn't putt out, and it was just kind of like we're hitting the ball a little bit. I couldn't figure out what we were doing because he's teeing up the ball and it was just kind of, it's like, all right, so it's a little bit off. So it's golf, but it's a little bit off. And then we go have this lunch at this country club, which was fantastic, and everybody's waiting on you at like a real fancy country club. And this is all new for me. This is Country Bumpkin Matt here, who's like, yeah, we'll have potato and bean burritos out behind the shed. That's good. This is like full on L.A. country club. And then we headed over to Century City, where they had this great bookstore. Can't remember the name of it, Rizzolo's or something like that. And we would just kind of look through the books, wander around. He loved biographies. I think that's the only thing he read were biographies. So he'd buy a biography. And then there were lots of movies there, and we would just see which movie was playing when we walked out of the bookstore. It kind of really didn't matter if we walked in halfway through. We would just we're going to go see that movie. And it also didn't matter, to him at least, if he was sitting where he sat. He would just walk into an aisle and sit down, and people, sometimes on people. And so the people are scrambling the other way. And I am the companion trying to oh, sorry, excuse me and stuff, and trying to guide him. But this is a guy who doesn't want to be, he's a captain of industry. He doesn't want to be guided by some sort of dude named Matt, who he makes him refer to him as Mr. Carter. And so, but we'd just kind of scatter out. But people weren't very understanding. And then if it was a movie he liked, I remember watching Home Alone with him. That was I think that's the only time I saw Home Alone. I watched that with him, and he wouldn't really say too much. That was a good movie. But we also went to go see, I think, Gas, Food, and Lodging, and which was a friend of mine had made that movie. With the cinematographer on it, and he was after 10 minutes, he's like, I hate this movie, and he walks out. He'd just walk out. He would say, I hate this movie, and then we would go after we'd play golf, bookstore, lunch, movie. We'd go back to his house and we'd play cards. And he taught me how to play, what's the name of that card game? Gin Rummy. And so we'd play Gin Rummy, and I would get into it. But he was, again, this guy's sharp, and I rarely won. I think I won maybe a couple times because I'm just and which is fine. But he could play, and we weren't chatting. We were just playing hardcore gin rummy for like an hour or two, and he always used a brand new deck. He'd pull, and then when that deck was done, he would put it over, and he just had this whole shelf of cards. And I'd meet his wife because I'm there at his house. His wife was a fireball. And these guys are, I'm not sure how old they were, but like they're in their 80s. And she was an Olympic downhill skier. And this was a whole nother level of society that I was just kind of getting a glimpse into. And the odd thing about it was, and then they pay you your $200 or $100 or whatever, and you're on your way. And it sounds like it would be a pretty good gig, and it was a pretty good gig. But there's something about doing those fun things with someone that doesn't really want you there, but has to have you there. You can't kind of relax into it. And so those fun things kind of taste a little sour in your mouth. The golf was not that great. The movies, which I like, was like Home Alone. I'm not that big of a fan of Home Alone movies, but it was like, And it was just a little bit off. And because of that, you're thinking, oh, if I retired, it kind of soured me on the whole idea of, I don't know, getting old, I guess. It soured me on the idea of getting old. But because we think about how when we want to retire, this is the kind of stuff you want to do. But then when you're doing it and you're 25 or 22 or however old I was, it was not great. I was like, this is horrible. I didn't like it at all, even if I was getting paid for it. Granted, every time that I was called up, that Matt would call me and say, hey, do you want to do this? I said yes, because it was good money, and I am still playing golf and watching movies. So you don't say no, that's horrible. But it was just a little bit off. So I guess the lesson I learned from that particular job is, sometimes the fun things in life are only fun if you're doing it with people that you like and that like you. And sometimes even if you're doing horrible things that aren't that fun, if you're with people that you like and like you, those things can be fun. More fun than if you're doing something that's quote unquote automatically fun, like golf or watching movies. So that was Job 19, Companion, for Mr. Ed Carter. You can call me Mr. Carter. That'll be fine. And he had also, he was like, did we drive his car? I can't imagine we drove my car, because I'm not sure if he would allow that, because it was junk. I don't know what kind of car we were in. I think we were in my car. But when we'd see a Jag or something like that, he'd be like, oh, Jaguar, that's a good car. But then Ford bought them out, and he would have all this stuff. But then sometimes he'd get confused about where he was. So he was just a little bit off. Transition phase, I guess he would be. So that was Job 19, Companion. And I realized some people really have an aptitude for being a caregiver and enjoy being around old people. I don't even like being around myself as I get old. I guess that'll be something that I will have to work on. Job number 19, Companion. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Matt Love, when I talk about him having some crazy jobs, I don't know how he got this job. I don't know how he hooked up with Mr. Carter, but he also was a juggler on a cruise ship. He and Dan Bennett were jugglers on cruise ships and did magic shows. Magic shows, companions for rich people. That's a movie. I mean, Los Angeles, right? It's great for that kind of crazy oddball stuff. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Tell your friends. Like it on Facebook. Make comments. Again, thanks for coming. Coming? You didn't come anywhere. You just sat in your house. You didn't go anywhere. You're supposed to say thanks for coming when people are actually at an event. This is not an event.